April 1970 brought huge attention toward another moon trip, yet no one imagined fear would soon take over. Earlier lunar journeys had already made history, and many people believed Apollo 13 would be another normal trip filled with triumph. Inside the command module sat three real men carrying hope and duty. Jim Lovell, a calm commander with years of flight knowledge, Fred Haise, eager to finally reach the lunar ground, and Jack Swigert, a late replacement added after another astronaut faced a health concern. Far below, at Mission Control, Gene Kranz and many other bright minds watched every move. What looked like another proud moment for America would quickly turn into a frightening fight for life. April 11th, 1970. Arrived with huge attention around the launch area while cameras aimed toward the giant vehicle ready for liftoff. Many people no longer viewed lunar travel with the same wonder after earlier moon landings, yet Apollo 13 carried an important goal. Jim Lovell hoped to finally walk upon the moon after earlier lunar journeys never gave him that chance. Fred Haise looked ready for a dream few people could imagine, and Jack Swigert entered late after another astronaut could not join the trip due to medical concern. At 2:13 in the afternoon, loud fire moved beneath the launch vehicle while huge crowds watched Apollo 13 climb higher into the dark sky. Everything looked calm, radio talk carried confidence, and no one imagined trouble waited ahead. Around 2 days into the trip, life inside Apollo 13 looked calm while the three men carried out daily duties and talked with Mission Control. During a live television event, Jim Lovell, Fred Haise, and Jack Swigert gave people back home a look inside their tiny living area. Yet public attention toward the trip had already dropped compared to earlier lunar journeys. A little later, Mission Control asked Jack Swigert to carry out a normal action linked to oxygen tanks. Nothing felt unusual. Then, within a moment, a loud bang moved through the vehicle. The men felt a hard jolt, warning lights lit up, and confusion quickly filled the cabin. Jim Lovell looked out a window and noticed an alarming view, gas flowing out into the dark around them. Very quickly, one terrifying truth came into view. Apollo 13 faced a major problem, with returning home now turning into the only goal. Fear quietly entered the cabin while the three men tried to understand what had gone wrong. Jack Swigert radioed Mission Control with calm words that later turned famous around the world. "Houston, we've had a problem here." At first, people on Earth hoped the trouble could carry a quick fix, yet data arriving at Mission Control painted a worrying picture. One oxygen tank no longer worked, another quickly dropped too, and power linked to the command module looked at risk. Gene Kranz and many bright minds at Mission Control knew one painful truth: a moon landing could no longer happen. Attention quickly turned away from reaching the moon and moved toward keeping three men alive long enough to return home. With power in the command module quickly running low, Mission Control came up with an idea no one ever imagined would become real. The lunar module, meant only for moon landing work, would now turn into a temporary home to keep the men alive. Jim Lovell, Fred Haise, and Jack Swigert moved into the tiny area while trying to protect battery power for later return. Yet a frightening problem soon arrived. The lunar module carried enough oxygen, water, and power for only 2 people during a short period, not 3 men for many days. Cold air filled their living area, food turned limited, and tired minds faced growing worry. Back on Earth, Gene Kranz and many other people worked day and night trying to find any path that could bring Apollo 13 home alive. Any dream of walking upon the moon had already ended, while one major goal still stayed alive: making it back home. Apollo 13 moved around the far area near the moon, giving Jim Lovell a painful view of a place he had waited years to walk upon. Rather than landing, the men had no choice but to keep moving around it and head back toward Earth. Time mattered, fuel mattered, and every move carried huge meaning. One wrong action could place the vehicle on a deadly path away from home. Inside the cabin, tired faces carried fear, while the men kept calm as Mission Control worked through every problem one at a time. Another frightening problem slowly entered the trip, while Apollo 13 moved farther from the moon. Carbon dioxide inside the cabin kept rising, and too much of it could put the men in deadly danger. The trouble came from air filters that did not match between the command module and lunar module. On Earth, many bright minds worked under huge pressure trying to fix a problem no one planned for. They could only use items already inside Apollo 13, including plastic bags, cardboard, tape, and manuals. Mission Control guided Jim Lovell, Fred Haise, and Jack Swigert through every tiny move to build a homemade air filter. After careful effort, it finally worked, giving the men a better chance to stay alive. Life inside Apollo 13 turned harder with every passing hour. To protect power, heat inside the cabin dropped, leaving the men freezing during much of the trip. Water turned limited, food intake dropped, and tired bodies grew weaker. Fred Haise later faced illness, adding even more worry to an already frightening journey. Sleep came with difficulty while fear quietly remained in their minds. Yet even under huge pressure, Jim Lovell, Fred Haise, and Jack Swigert kept calm and carried out every action Mission Control gave them, knowing one wrong move could place all hope at risk. As Apollo 13 moved closer to Earth, another frightening challenge arrived. Battery power left inside the command module had to remain available for the final return through Earth's atmosphere. Mission Control carefully built a new power plan unlike anything ever tried before, cutting nearly every non-needed function. Every move had to work perfectly. Then came one terrifying moment. Radio contact would go quiet while Apollo 13 moved through heavy heat during re-entry. People at Mission Control waited in complete worry, watching the clock while hoping the men had made it through alive. Every extra moment without contact felt terrifying. After long and frightening days filled with fear, freezing air, hunger, and growing worry, Apollo 13 moved through Earth's atmosphere, while people around the world waited for any good news. At Mission Control, Gene Kranz and many other people watched the clock with nervous hope. Radio contact took longer than many imagined, creating fear that the worst outcome had arrived. Then, at last, voices returned. Apollo 13 had made it through. Relief filled Mission Control, while joy reached family members waiting for good news. Jim Lovell, Fred Haise, and Jack Swigert had returned alive after one of the most dangerous journeys ever faced by human beings. What looked like failure had turned into a powerful example of teamwork, quick thinking, and human courage. Apollo 13 never reached the moon the way people imagined, yet the journey left behind a powerful memory that many people still talk about even today. What started as another lunar trip quickly turned into a frightening fight for survival, where quick thinking, patience, and human determination played a major role in bringing 3 men back home alive. Jim Lovell, Fred Haise, and Jack Swigert faced freezing temperatures, hunger, fear, and one problem after another, while many people on Earth worked tirelessly to guide them through an uncertain path. Rather than being remembered for landing on the moon, Apollo 13 earned a place in history for proving how much people can overcome during moments of fear and pressure. Even now, one important question remains. If you had been inside Apollo 13 during those frightening moments, how do you think you would have reacted? Would you have remained calm, or would fear have taken over? Share your opinion and thoughts in the comments. If you enjoy real astronaut stories, lunar mysteries, survival stories, and unforgettable moments from the universe, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real documentary stories.